I give the call to member for Perth.
This government loves congratulating itself, always boasting about success, never admitting to failure. How good are the WA Liberals? Yells Senator Cash. A key line for the ages. We saw Prime Minister Scott Morrison claim that he won the WA state election, and it's just more proof of how out of touch he is with Western Australia. I live in Western Australia, and I can tell the Prime Minister here on the record in Hansard he did not win the WA state election. And now we have this motion congratulating themselves for HomeBuilder, while doing absolutely nothing for the social housing sector. If you need a slogan for a policy, what about, instead of HomeBuilder, what about Shelter Seeker? What about something for the social housing sector, for homeless Australians and for low-income essential workers? We know that homes have taken new significance over the last 12 months. They became our places of work, places of shelter, places that we had to crush boredom for weeks and weeks on end, and for some people, unfortunately, places of no escape. But when this government is onto a good thing, as the member just told us, they have a tendency to cut it short. We saw with JobKeeper, keeping 1 million Australians employed. What was the government's response? Well, they're going to end it in 6 days' time. We saw with JobSeeker providing essential support to low-income Australians who are about to see massive rent hikes when various rental freezes cut off, particularly in my home state of Western Australia. Again, government's response, something's working well, shut it down. And then HomeBuilder. What will happen to this program? We've just been told about the 1 million Australians who are having their jobs supported by this program. The government's going to shut it down with nothing to replace it in the social housing sector. It could fill some of that demand gap. And we know that when it comes to the rollout of things, this government is always great at the announcement. This is just houses. I will get onto vaccines in a minute, but the rollout was bumpy. We had people lodging their applications. We had disputes with state treasuries. We had problems where people couldn't meet the 6-month requirement because they hadn't been provided the essential information by the government. We had building licences which didn't meet the government's criteria. It was a mess. And then we have the problem that it, in some areas, caused unnecessary inflation. The Master Builders Chairman for the Esperance Goldfield, Brett Partington, said that they've had delays for building which used to take a week, now take 6 weeks, and that it's led to 10 to 20% increase to build houses and extensions at the moment. This is a huge problem in regional areas that this government has created because of the poor design of this policy. But then it's okay because the member for O'Connor, Rick Wilson, came to the rescue. Rick loves policy on the fly, loves making things up. Sorry, the member for O'Connor.
Interrupt the member. The member seeks
to... should refer to members of Parliament.
Yes, the member is quite correct.
Titles.
We do not refer to people by names but by their seats. I thank the member.
Sorry, the member for O'Connor said, quote, "I'm sure there'll be a bit of a leeway to allow people to press ahead and get their projects underway." So he's actually said that the 6-month deadline doesn't apply. Now, I'm not sure that's actually true, but it's what he's been telling his constituents, which is a huge concern when people are making huge investments in their homes and building them up. But it's a very worrying trend from this government. One of the final things I want to talk about is it is essential that every Australian has somewhere to call home. We've seen the congratulations from those opposite. They've allowed people to improve their homes or, those who maybe save a few dollars here and there. But I think there was a very important report released by the member for Macnamara last week which talked about the housing crisis in Australia. And I want to quote from that report, where it says, "There has always been a false narrative around people choosing to sleep rough. Anecdotally, it is common to hear that homeless people are choosing that lifestyle, but this is completely wrong. People may choose to live on the street rather than use temporary housing that they can access because a well-lit street under a CCTV camera can often be safer than overcrowded and dangerous rooming house." And I think if I look at what's happened in my electorate over the last few years, with increases in visible homelessness, a tent city having been erected, we know that there is indeed a crisis that this government has failed to confront when it comes to investing in social housing. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
The question is that the motion